What's going on, everybody? My name is Ben, and welcome back to the bench for a brand new episode here on Sci-Fi Wednesdays. We are back on the Delta 7, and today we are going to be pushing on and trying to get a bit more done here on this awesome project. First off, though, we need to figure out a couple of unknowns like the canopy. We also have to paint up our R4 unit, as well as some of the details there in the cockpit and around the hull itself. So there's quite a bit left to do. And I should actually talk a bit about the canopy because this thing is plaguing me so much. I have no idea how to get this reproduced. I don't like the fact that it's not printed in clear resin, so I thought, why not try to vacuum form it? So I made this box a couple episodes ago, poked more holes through it. The vacuum fits in there nicely. It does pull a lot of air down through these different holes, but to be honest, I don't know if it's going to work. I did cut out a frame that I can go ahead and use to hold together a piece of plastic. We can heat that up and then push it down over the object with the vacuum on, and hopefully that gives us a replica of the piece. Like I said, though, I have no idea if this is going to work. There's a lot of variables that go into that, so we're just going to try it out off camera. And today we're going to focus mostly on the detail painting and get the rest of the ship mostly painted. And to do that, of course, you need references. So luckily, I've got this book here, Star Wars: The Complete Vehicles. I've got this awesome book that has a full cutaway of the Delta 7. And yes, I know it's actually Kenobi's Delta 7, but that's okay. All we need to do is figure out the colors for the cockpit, the instrument panels, the seat, all that good stuff. And I'm thinking I'm going to go ahead and stick with maybe some Tamiya Sky Gray, maybe mix with a little bit of maybe a bluer gray, just to kind of give that nice tint to it. And then of course, NATO black and all the switches and dials and whatnot. So lots of painting to do. Should be pretty fun though. Now, of course, the cockpit does come with some extra parts and pieces. For example, we've got an extra flight control stick, and that could be added in. However, I don't think I'm going to be using that. It does fit nicely, though. Don't get me wrong. It's a great little piece. However, though, I want to go ahead and see if I can't utilize Plo Koon here, the little Jedi pilot, and he has a built-in control stick, so I don't need to use two. So that's kind of my plan. I want to go ahead and see if I can't paint him up. And I think that's going to make every other part and piece here basically irrelevant. So we shouldn't need to use anything more than just the pilot. Now, I don't normally paint figures, so this is going to be a little bit of kind of stepping out of my comfort zone. I'm going to go ahead and try a bit of a zenithal priming, so that's going to be interesting. I'll start off with a nice black primer coat, then I'll come back with some white to add in some highlights, and then I'll just thin down my paint and use different colors that I've got here lying around the bench to go ahead and paint up his Jedi robes and, of course, his face. And that's going to be a little challenging because I don't know how to paint skin tones. So that's going to be interesting. But let's go ahead and jump into our first time lapse. So we're going to push through the cockpit. We're going to try to get all the rest of the little parts installed, detail paint everything there. We're going to mix and match some paint colors, and then we can go ahead and get on to adding switches and dial detail as well as the screen details. And then we can go ahead and get a little bit of weathering and shading, and then we'll go ahead and paint up Plo Koon. So yeah, lots to do here, guys. Let's go ahead and jump in there. Let's start having some fun. Let's see what we can get done. Alright everybody, we are back, and as you can see, our Plo Koon figure is nicely painted. I went ahead and used Tamiya flat brown as well as Tamiya buff, and then I used some old aluminum by Tamiya. Then I used some NATO black, and I went ahead and dry brushed it down with some deck tan, and I think it looks pretty good, so I'm happy with it. As you can see, he drops right into place here in the cockpit. It's got excellent fit. There's actually some locating keys right at the bottom of Plo as well as the top of the seat, so he does kind of fit right down inside of there. So yeah, I'm very happy with how this has turned out. Now, I don't normally paint figures, so doing kind of the zenithal priming and coming in with some very thin paints to go ahead and make sure to have some of that shadow come out, it's a little bit complicated, but I was able to get it done, and I think honestly, yeah, it looks pretty good. One thing I will say though is I wanted to add a little bit more of a red hue to Plo's face and head. So I've actually pulled out some Army Painter red shade, and we're going to go ahead and just kind of go over the top of his skin color with this red wash that should hopefully kind of tint it a little bit more towards the red side of the spectrum. And this isn't too bad considering I hardly ever paint figures. We also have to get on to painting up the R4 unit, and that's going to be in a sea blue color with silver outlines, and I've already tried to do a little bit of zenithal on that as well. So let's jump back into our time lapse, paint up the R4 unit, and then we'll start with painting some details like the engines, and do a little bit of panel line accents for different shadows, and finally we'll get a dry brush there on the engine, maybe some of the cockpit, and I think we're going to call it quits. So back into it, guys. Let's see what else we can do. Let's finish off the episode. Alright everybody, we are back, and so far so good. We've gotten most of the painting done here for the Delta 7. We even painted up Plo Koon, and I really like how he's turned out. I don't paint figures very much, but I was able to achieve, I think, what looks decent at 3 feet, so I'm happy with it. On top of painting up Plo Koon, I also went ahead and did quite a bit of work there on the cockpit, and he fits right into the cockpit and he looks like he belongs there. I did do some detail painting there on the engines with NATO black. I did paint up my R4 unit as well as the internal cockpit area and added in some shading around the perimeter detailing. Get you a real quick zoom in here. As you can see, we've got a lot of different switches and dials we've picked out with red, green, silver, white, and blue. Some of them show up better than others, but yeah, I really like how this has turned out. We've gotten different colored blues there for the displays, as well as some green switches on the left side of the cockpit, and then we added in some of the details there on the seat, dry brushed it with a sky gray, and I think the details really do pop at you. Also used a little bit of Tamiya panel liner to add in some shading, and I like how it's turned out. For the R4 unit, we did use a sea blue color to go ahead and differentiate that blue with the ship. We added in some old silver there around the different panels for his detail. And as you can see, he's a magnet, so he pops off, pops back on. We can turn him any direction we want. So yeah, pretty happy with that as well. Plo just drops right into place. As you can see, he fits very nicely in the cockpit. We'll need a little bit of glue though to make sure he doesn't slide around too much. But yeah, I really like how this is turning out. And again, painting figures is not my forte. I really want to try to get into more figure painting, but for right now, this is probably like the 4th or 5th figure I've tried to paint. and I think I've gotten an idea about how to do it, but there's a lot I still have left to learn. So I'm getting there. This was fun for sure. Now, of course, we have the canopy left to go, and I did a little bit of testing while my paint was drying, and I tried to go ahead and do a little bit of vacuum-forming just to see if I could get it to work. And to be honest, I haven't been very successful. Either my vacuum is not strong enough, the plastic is too thick, or I can't get it hot enough to conform. This is the best I could come up with right now. It's kind of vaguely the shape of the canopy. I'm not exactly happy with it, so I'm stuck. So that leaves us with a very difficult question. What are we going to do? So that means my options are limited. I can either take the canopy and do nothing with it, or I could take it, glue it open, paint it black, or just remove the center section and try to replace that with some acetate or something like that. I don't know what's going to really work, and I'm not sure what I want to try. Because if I go ahead and cut out the center section, it's not going to be easy to get this thing back together if I need to. And it's a very complicated curve to it, so there's definitely some issues left to kind of resolve. So we got to think on that. In terms of the ship itself, though, I do require a little bit of weathering here and there for some staining, and of course I do have some more detailed gold triangles that are going to have to be painted up around the center forward spine, so that's got to be done. And it's going to be the same on top as it is on the bottom, so I will have to go ahead and mask, prime it, and then hit it with a little bit of yellow to go ahead and keep it nice and uniform. We'll see how that goes. I don't think it'll be all that difficult to do, but it will require a little bit of extra time. It is what it is, right? Still, not too bad. For the R4 unit, like I mentioned, I used a sea blue, and I went ahead and painted in the details with this Tamiya old aluminum, and that worked out really, really well. And of course, for Plo, I don't ever paint figures really, and painting them up was a lot of fun. I went ahead and used a Zenithal style priming, flat black, followed by a highlight of white shooting straight down on the figure to give it some artificial highlights. And then I came in with Tamiya flat brown, Tamiya buff, Tamiya deck tan for some dry brushing, and some Nada black for the gloves. For his skin tones, I went ahead and used this set by Vallejo. I used the two darker shades right here, and I thinned out the paint and went over his face and his hands. Then I came back in with some Army Painter washes. I absolutely love these. I used two different versions. I used a soft tone and I used a flesh wash on his face and on his clothes, and those worked really, really well. And I went ahead and did a little bit of a red wash on his skin just to go ahead and give it a bit of different coloring. Even though I don't paint figures very often, I have to say I did have fun with this. Might have to paint up some more. But that is it for us today, guys. I think we've done quite a bit of work here. We've got everything more or less painted. We do have to come back in and do a little bit more detail painting, of course, like I mentioned, weathering, and we have to seal this down so I don't destroy the paint job with weathering. But yeah, this is going to be kind of fun, getting very, very close to getting this completely 100% finished, and then we can work on our base. So until our next episode, everybody, thank you so much for watching. You know the drill. Go out there, get yourself some bench time, have some fun, build something cool, and we'll see you back here on episode 4 for more of our Delta 7 Jedi Starfighter. And hopefully by then, we'll have figured out what to do with the canopy. That is the one last hurdle I need to go ahead and figure out. So until then, take care of yourselves, and we'll see you soon.